Are you the next monarch? Or merely a pawn of fate? Bearer of the curse, I will remain by your side till this frail hope shatters.
Oh, give me your best death growl. Roar. Hello, I'm Taboo.
And I'm Church.
And we are the Dark Souls 2.
And welcome to the Dark Souls 2.
And if you're wondering what the hell that was about...
That was Soul Mass!
My
Actually
God.
sounded kind of cool.
Yeah, so this band, Soul Mass, clearly death metal, have released an album, and we don't believe it's their first, but entirely dedicated to Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's Dark Souls death metal.
So if you're into that
Dark
kind
metal.
of stuff, check it out.
Yeah.
What was that album called?
Well, they've got a couple of albums, actually. They once were called Kingdoms of Flesh, but now they're called Soul Mass. They've got a few albums. The Painted World, The Age of Darkness, Despairing Fates, and they've got these awesome song names like The Four Kings and Chronicles of the Abyss Walker.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, so don't sue us for playing that music, and if you do, maybe try a cough lozenge or some honey lemon tea before you come to court. You know, the plaintiff alleges.
Yeah, man, Soul Mass, check them out. You can actually live stream their whole album on YouTube currently.
Yeah, man. Although I'm not too sure that you know what a live stream is. Don't give me that disgusted look. You said the words, not me. Anyway,
Yeah, we'll link up it.
yeah, we will. So this episode, we're talking about the Shrine of Amana.
So, I think for the first time, we're actually going to get to really sink our teeth in deep into what this game's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the first area where you've reached a point in the game where you've got enough information to start really formulating ideas, and some real truths start staring you in the face in this area. So it's good to start discussing the underlying story of this game, and obviously we'll expand on that as things progress.
So, announcements and PSAs.
Yeah.
Steam database, we've got to have a bit of a chat about this.
Yeah, so Steam Database is an aggregate site for page listings and game info related to games that are on Steam, right?
Yeah, it kind of just collects a ton of information about game listings and whatnot. Gives you a bit of a look behind the scenes as well, because what happens is it sort of shows you things that have been committed to Steam games. And what showed up just 4 days ago was a commit called Test DLC 4 for Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
People are postulating that maybe we are going to get a fourth DLC.
Yeah, well, as you'd expect, before the third DLC came out, there was a Test DLC 3 mentioned in the code. So
Yeah,
it
that just
kind
sort of
makes
popped up.
sense. Yeah.
So, who knows? I mean, I'm not going to get my hopes up, but watch this space.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about the community in Community Talk. I don't know why I said it that way. Little Niv, who often rocks up to the live stream, is making a little Niv.
Yeah, man.
He said his girlfriend was going to get induced on Wednesday, and I thought that was some kind of like religious ceremony or some shit. But
Really?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
But I imagined like a sacrifice. You know?
No, that's not what that means at all. So, he should be a daddy. And look, congratulations, Niv. We really wish the best for you. Would actually love to see some pictures of little Taboo Jr. you've got there, because as you said on the stream that you're going to have to name him after me, man. And as we all know, anything said on the stream is legally binding.
What if it's a girl?
Taboo works.
Taboo eater?
Taboo Arena.
Taboo arena. Right. Okay. So, congratulations, little Niv.
Tabooella.
Taboorella. Yeah, so...
And his girlfriend.
And little Niv's girlfriend, who did most of the heavy lifting, I think.
But aside from that, we made a goof.
Yep.
You made a goof.
Yeah, which is rare. When you make a goof, it's not that uncommon and nobody really notices. But when I make a goof, it's like, oh shit, Church done goofed, Write it on the internet, everyone's got to know. But I fucked it up, because last episode we forgot to mention that one of the coolest and most important armor sets in the whole game is under Drangleic Castle, the Faram set. It's
right next to the bonfire that gets you into the Chasm of Old, and it's just sitting there on a corpse, ready to pick up. And the reason it's so important, as you said, is, not so much for lore or anything, but it's the archetypal armor set for the game. It's the armor that every single piece of merchandise and trailers and media that came out about the game and posters and all the rest, the main guy was wearing.
Yeah, but think of another armor set that is easier to forget, that is less important to remember. That is the one that we shouldn't have fucked up.
Yep. Look, I've even got a freaking statue of it.
I know. Let's cover it off right now. The item description says, helmet blessed by the war god Faram, or armor or gauntlets or boots, depending on what you pick up. This helmet, or armor or gauntlets or boots, is designed in the style of the Lion Knights, a once mighty order from Ferossa. Although the Lion Knights wore heavy armor, they were feared for their nimble two-handed swordplay. And that's all that I've got to say about that.
Yeah, let's move on.
Cool. The Shrine of Amana. It's funny, there's this, the Shrine of Amana is linked with death, very, very closely linked with the concept of death. In this state where we live, there is an aged care provider called Amana Living, and their motto is living the second half of life. It's just every time I drive past the building, I think, oh God, the Shrine of Amana. You can go in there, and the receptionist shoots you with this long range spell, and you get to the back of the lobby, and there's all these, and it's a bit depressing. It's like,
that's what I call my elderly, the undead.
The undead. What do you mean you're elderly? Are you a slave owner?
No, that's all I have to say on the matter.
Okay, so the Shrine of Amana is reached by descending a long elevator shaft from Dranglake Castle, like one of those really long elevator shafts. And interestingly, when you get to the bottom, if you walk over the pressure plate,
it just kind of
floats up. There's no pole that it's on, and there's no like ropes or chains.
It's cray.
It's cray. Anyway, the room that you find yourself in at the bottom is a big square room with nothing in it except a smashed hole in the wall with some tree roots growing out. It's like Nature's Goatsy version 2. And why is it that the only exit is a smashed hole in the wall? Like, if the smashed hole in the wall wasn't there, there'd be no exit. So the entire elevator shaft and the magic to make that thing float would have just been pointless.
What are you getting at? There is a hole in the wall, so...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the hole in the wall is clearly accidental because it's all smashed open and there's rubble everywhere.
I don't see that at all.
It totally is.
No, there was probably a doorway there, and the roots have, crept in and crumbled around the edges and made it look smashed, but it's just weathered. It's not like the roots smashed the hole in the wall.
I guess.
Every time you go past a decrepit old house, you're like, well...
why build a decrepit house there? Why don't you build a normal house? I mean, who the fuck thinks of these things?
All right, so pass through the door, and you head into this sort of long, deep chasmous cave kind of thing with roots and trees everywhere. Chasmous.
Having the same characteristics as a chasm. Chasmous. You'll reach a pillar with a burning torch on it, and to the right you can smash some roots to grab a green blossom off a corpse. This is a recurring theme in this area, that you smash a little wall made out of tree roots to get shit. So continuing along, you begin to hear the beautiful song of the Milfinito as you reach the first bonfire, the Tower of Prayer. And you can kind of see from the floor that you're on, the Tower of Prayer bonfire, that you're very near to a really large chasmous area.
I'm sure it's a word.
Oh, yes, surely. So, this area is a large underground chamber filled with deep water. There's a crumbling and often submerged path that winds its way through the ruins, and there are some huts dotted through the area that are still occupied. And all of this occurs between a canopy made up of the tangled roots of trees through which shines the day.
It's kind of nice.
It is. It's very nice, beautiful music and these beautiful blue flowers. And
yeah, the little glowing flowers and all the rest. I like it.
Creepy four-eyed undead lizard men with a tongue hanging out the mouth that tries to gut you. It's interesting about
sniped from miles away.
Yeah,
fucking hate the
giant
area.
Troll
piece of
bites
shit.
my head off. It's interesting about the fact that you are beneath the roots of some trees that must be absolutely immense, because in the previous area, you remember we talked about that statue and the
it's
relief.
a bust on the lead up to the Looking Glass night.
That's
fight.
correct. It's it depicts a tall tree with tangled branches at the top, and at the bottom are wide tangled roots, and to either side stand some nondescript figures, which we presume are Vendrick and Aldia. Now, we covered this over briefly last time, but we've done a little bit more research about it.
Yeah, so it's not actually the first time we've seen it. It seems important to the game because it actually shows up in the Aching Bones trailer, which is, a trailer that came out before the game even came out.
Yeah, so it's got some kind of importance. Interestingly, there's a whole bunch of references to this tree throughout the game, even the previous game. So the sword that's stabbed into the pillar on which the bust rests looks a lot like the Boulder Side Sword from Dark Souls 1. The Boulder Shield bears a tree with a very similar design on it. The arch tree concept from Dark Souls 1 seems to be reborn in this, or it might be a reference to them, but that seems to be linked to the world tree Yggdrasil from Norse mythology.
I thought it was Yggdrasil.
I don't know. The world tree Yggdrasil from Norse mythology holds up the surface of the world. The roots of Yggdrasil are gnawed eternally by primordial serpents. In fact, Odin, the god of Athena, says that more serpents lie beneath Yggdrasil than any fool can imagine.
Sorry, Odin the what?
The god of Athena. One god can be the god of another god. It's like Zeus, god of Thor. Same kind of concept.
Odin's the god of Athena?
Yeah, I thought you understood all this stuff.
It was just like...
You're my authority on these things. I ask you normally.
Never mind, we'll move along.
So that ties in, obviously, with the concept of primordial serpents beneath Lordran.
Yeah, the ones, that are clearly in the abyss.
So if you consider that, and the fact that we see the stone carving directly before entering this area, it seems like there's a suggestion that the Shrine of Amana exists at the roots of this tree, and maybe at the roots of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, fits with Dark Souls 1. Ash Lake was absolutely the lowest point in the game.
Yeah, some points in this area were my lowest point in the game as well.
Okay, so that's the background for the area. We're starting at the Tower of Prayer bonfire. So from here, we're going to head down the spiral staircase to the first landing, and you're going to see a open wooden door sort of on your right. And from here, you can walk out onto a ledge, and immediately on your left, overlooking the vast cavern, is a corpse hanging in a tree. And you can go up and see that there's an item there that you want to try and pick up, but what you have to do is hit the tree branches that the corpse is tangled up in, and they'll break and the corpse will fall down to the floor below, and we'll come back to that in a moment.
Absolutely. So continue along that narrow ledge. You'll find an acid horn beetle, which we encountered earlier, and a chest, and in the chest there's a skeptic spice and some herbs, and now you can go back to the tower and continue down the spiral staircase.
Yep, so once you get down to the floor level, you're going to be shin deep in some water and some rubble, and this is the first time you're going to come across what the guidebook refers to as lizard men. You've actually found another name for them, Amana aberrations.
It's one of the many, many mistakes that a person makes when they trust Fextra Life. The people that make Fextra Life spend half their time being illiterate and the other half making things up. They're also called Amana aberrations by the community, is what I'm getting at. But the official name is lizard men.
Yep.
The lizard men are described in the guidebook as a hollow that lived in an aquatic environment for an extended period of time and eventually adapted to its surroundings by mutating into its present form. These creatures prowl the shallow waters of the Shrine of Amana, perpetually searching for sources of fresh souls. The most interesting thing about these guys, and I'm sure that it's been in other areas of the game, but I didn't know about it, is that their resistances are different whether they're wet or dry.
Yep.
Did you know about this?
Yep.
Other enemies like this?
Yep. I'm not sure about other enemies, but you know what? I think that's actually universal, because there's going to be, I can think of an area in the DLC where you get invaded by a red phantom that is very pyro-based, and there's a little puddle of water, and, you can roll around in that water, and that'll give you some defense against the flames. I think it's just a dynamic in the game. I don't know that these guys were specially designed, so I suppose to answer your question, I guess, any enemy that rolls through the water, just like you, can coat themselves in water, which gives them higher fire resistance. I assume probably lowers your lightning resistance as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. These guys are put to sleep by the singing of the Milfinito due to the sprites which appear, the little yellow fireflies that circle their bodies. I mean, I'm calling them fireflies colloquially. I don't know that they're necessarily actual bugs.
They could be spores, they could be bugs, who knows?
It could be some little mote of energy, who knows?
They are somewhat important. We'll cover them off in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Now, what you have to note, though, is that they do get dispersed by light sources like a torch. But for some reason, the spell cast light doesn't disperse them. I don't know if that's just an oversight or if it's
I think that the presence of the flame wakes them up because they are undead. And the undead want the fire.
Flame has got nothing to do with the cast light spell. Yeah, that makes sense.
Dear flame. So these guys actually have 4 eyes on their faces. And they mostly drop mundane junk, except for some effigies and smooth and silky stones.
So, From the bottom of the tower, you want to head out the crumbled wall, and you'll go along a path that's just slightly raised out of the water. But as soon as you step outside, you're going to get ambushed by a Lindelt cleric.
That's right. He rushes you from the right, and if you don't look to your right, the first time you walk out, he kind of ends up behind you.
He's, very easy to miss. I even forget him now.
And these guys are tough.
Yeah.
The guidebook actually says that these guys are immigrants, that Lindelt is an authoritarian nightmare of a place to live, and so many such as these emigrate to find a better life. So these guys actually
come to Dranglake to get away.
Yeah, and historically the Archdrake sect have been enemies of Lindelt.
Yeah, but nonetheless, since going hollow, they find themselves wanting to harm humans, so it's kind of what they do now. But once you've defeated him, go off to where he was originally standing, off to the right, and you'll want to hang up close to some pillars of stone coming out of the ground, and you'll make your way around them, being careful not to go too far out. And behind the pillars of stone, you'll be able to pick up the item on that corpse that was tangled up in the tree branches above.
Yeah, which was just a flame butterfly and some twinkling titanite. There's quite a few flame butterflies and human effigies in the area, which kind of makes sense given the nature of the Shrine of Amana. So, continue along the path towards the hut that you see before you. There's some sleeping lizard men on the left and right, and to the left of the path there's a chest containing a single Elizabeth mushroom, which is pretty useless. And here we learn our first important lesson about the Shrine of Amana. If you walk too close to the edge, you will die. You will fall straight off, and it's really hard to see where the edge is, right?
Oh, yeah. About the only thing that really helps, aside from looking directly at the ground as you walk, is a torch. But the trouble with that is, as we mentioned earlier, it disperses those little fireflies and wakes up the lizard men.
Exactly. So you kind of got to make a judgment call about whether it's better to not risk falling off the edge. But actually, once you get the hang of the area, it tends to be okay. You kind of know where the edge is.
You still have some heart-stopping moments every so often where you're like getting pushed off course by an enemy and you're like, run away, oh crap, where am I?
Yeah, I've fallen off the edge a couple of times just earlier today. So if you want, you can actually leave those sleeping lizard men where they are, but as you approach the hut, the Milfanito inside knows that you're coming, so she stops singing, which disperses the little ones, as the Milfanito calls them, which wakes the aberrations, which causes them to mob you.
Yeah, now that's actually important, because when we go into the hut, we're going to meet our first Milfanito, and we'll cover off what they are in a moment, but yeah, they do talk about their singing, lulling the little ones, and that's exactly what these little spores are.
Yeah, that's right. They say that when they sing, the little ones dance, which soothes those who bear death and dark, which is really important terminology as well. They also say that they were created by the great dead one, the one who gave us the first death. Which sounds to me like
Nito.
Grave Lord Nito.
Oh, yes.
And there's another interesting thing about that. In the next area, we will meet a character who identifies as a Finito.
Yes.
Who's male.
Yes.
So the theory is that these are the children of Nito, that identify as the children of Nito, and that there is a prefix for their names, that Milfa is a prefix meaning female child of, and that
Fen
is a prefix meaning male child of.
Yep.
So the Finito are the male children of Nito, and the Milfanito are the female children of Nito.
I think it's sound.
Makes
if nothing
sense.
else, semantically it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think it's cool. So, the Milfanito then are almost certainly older than the Kingdom of Dranglake, right? I mean, if their creator is Nito, then they must be truly ancient.
Yeah, which kind of does go with their storyline. They do say how that they sort of know nothing of the outside world and that they've always been here.
It's really interesting that they always go on about how they know nothing of the outside world. Every one of them that you speak to says repeatedly, "We know nothing of the outside." It's like someone stole a car in the next neighbourhood. It's like, "Oh no, I've never been outside, officer. What would I know about cars?" And
get your story straight.
It's just, I'm telling you, bearer of the curse, I don't know anything about the outside world. Okay.
I think there's some reasons to assume that they actually have some sort of a joint consciousness, though, and that they don't really think for themselves.
Some people speculate that they are kind of like a hive mind, that what one sees, all the others see. And I think that the origin of that speculation is that it's assumed that the player will have been noticed by the Milfanito who is imprisoned with the embedded. This is the Milfanito we mentioned last time, the woman locked in a cage. Mm-hmm. And the first time that you see a Milfanito that you can have a conversation with in this hut that we're talking about, she says, "We knew you were coming."
Right.
So the speculation is that the first one saw you and communicated that somehow or shared the experience with the others.
Yeah. Now, one thing that's very important to note, though, is if you are playing a mage class, you've got to be careful with these guys because some of your automatic sort of fire spells will lock onto them and you don't want to go damaging an NPC unnecessarily.
Exactly. They will auto-lock on these NPCs even though they're not hostile and kill them, which sucks. So, head out of her hut. If you turn right and circle around, you'll find a chest containing some crimson water, and there's a cursed jar there by the chest. So continue along the rocky path as before, and you'll notice that once you're a few paces away from the hut, the singing starts again, the little ones reappear, and all the locals fall back asleep.
Yeah, and I got to say, like, I never picked up on this the first time. It's another one of those things that, you know, silly old Taboo just is oblivious to. But yeah, it's clearly what they're talking about. But as you mentioned, like, people smarter than me or more observant than me notice that as soon as you approach the hut and she stops singing, they disperse. And then the very next moment, she starts talking about, you know, their singing brings out the little ones, and, you know, you can make that connection very clearly. I didn't.
Ahead of you, you'll see 3 Lindelt clerics standing guard at the exit to this area. And if you're not careful, you can actually aggro all 3 of them at once. So you've got to be cautious with them because they're tough enemies. And in New Game Plus, there's an Amana priestess, a unique Amana priestess in that area who doesn't attack you. She just heals
Them,
clerics. Yeah. And interestingly, when you kill them all, she hasn't got a staff. She hasn't got a weapon.
Can't
She's kind of
herself.
Yeah, she'll stand like 5 feet from you with her arms out and just like circle around you. So after you kill all of those and any lizard men that you see hiding to either side of the path, you will see a tunnel ahead of you. But before you go in, there's some jagged rocks to your left jutting out of the ground, which are quite familiar. And there's a chest there containing a dragon charm. It's really easy to fall into the abyss in this area.
Yeah, so once you pick that up, head through the tunnel. You'll notice a room off to the left when you enter with a few sleeping lizard men and one of the acid horn beetles. And in there, you'll also notice a chest which contains Twinkling Titanite and a Smooth and Silky Stone.
Yeah, more Twinkling Titanite, more Smooth and Silky Stones. So there's a fog gate just past this area, and when you get through the fog gate, you come into your next kind of chasmous area, which is similar to the last one, except there's a lot of blue, really pretty blue flowers. Ahead of you, there's a crumbling ruin, and you can just make out the crumbling ruins bonfire from where you're standing. As you approach the bonfire, though, you're attacked with spells by an Amana Shrine Maiden, also called an Amana Priestess.
Yeah, and these are what pretty much make the area very hard. It's this section that particularly gave me so much difficulty. Just, they seem to cast from miles away.
They've got a massive range.
Which bugs me, because I have spells very similar.
Homing Soul Arrow, which is kind of what they're using, I think.
Yeah, and I can cast them from behind a pillar, and I'll get hit by their spell, and they won't get hit by mine.
Yep. It's quite annoying, but I kind of like it. I like the challenge. The guidebook description of these guys or girls is important. It says, hollowed priestesses formerly responsible for performing the sealing rituals which imprisoned the demon of song, who we're going to meet later. Over time, the line of shrine maidens gradually died off, and with no successors to pass down the sacred rites, the seal broke, and the demon was freed from its prison.
Yeah, so it's just that these guys were responsible for keeping him in there, and basically the magic that was keeping him locked away got lost through time and generations of these priestesses.
The interesting thing is that there are 2 versions, and I mentioned the other version earlier. The healing version is non-aggressive. They only heal people that want to fight with you. And interestingly, they heal the immigrant Lindelt clerics, who I assume are not directly related to them. If this area is ancient and or was under the yoke of King Vendrick, then why would Lindelt priestesses be charged with looking after the Demon of Song? So now, after all of that's happened, the few remaining Amana priestesses have sided with the Lindelt clerics.
Yeah, it's a bit of a question mark for the area that doesn't quite fully add up for us. So if anybody's got an idea about that, let us know. Now, these Shrine Maidens actually drop the Staff of Amana, and the Staff of Amana has an interesting dynamic where its scaling goes down with each level of hollowing that you are. So the damage modifier is best when you're a human, and there's obviously a lot of science that goes into these kind of weapons and the community figuring out exactly how they work and when one's better than another and all the rest. So you actually found a good link on Reddit where some guy did all the testing and put in a lot of effort, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time, thinking about this game, but I'm still very impressed by people that put in the hard yards to
really scientifically test something.
To pick apart the way a weapon works. I'm just really impressed by that. So we can dump a link to a comparison between the Shrine of Amana and the Staff of Wisdom, which are 2 really good catalysts, I think.
2 really good what, Church?
I think I meant to say the Staff of Amana and the Staff of Wisdom.
Yes, you're not comparing the staff
Well, it's
of wisdom to
it's
the
actually-
entire area.
It's a pretty easy comparison. This one's an entire area. That one's a staff. They're actually quite different. Not much to compare between the two. It's a 5-second job. Anyway,
So, after lighting this bonfire, you're going to clear the immediate area of 2 priestesses and a few lizard men, and you'll notice a path that splits off. If you sort of head down the left-hand path, it'll lead you to a submerged Pharos contraption. Now, this one's cool, because it's hard to see. It's under the water, but if you find it, it reveals a face, and you play the whole whack-a-mole, and you get inside, and you get to pick up the Helix Halberd. Really cool weapon.
incredibly cool, actually, I think. The item description talks about how it has a complex design, some would say excessively so, that hides a spear within its handle. It also mentions that its origins are unclear, but it looks like it came from Alaphus. And the spear in the handle is really interesting. If you do a strong attack, or when you're power stancing, if you even do a light attack, when you do the attack, a spear tip protrudes from the end of the weapon. If you hit with the spear tip, you get a small amplifier of damage. But if you hit with both blades and the spear tip, you get a really massive amplifier of damage. And I couldn't actually bed down exactly what the amplifier is. Some people were saying it's the same as a crit. One person quoted base damage times 4 times 2, but I'm not sure exactly what
extreme.
context they meant. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So from here ahead of us, you'll see an area of the game that you'll kind of remember. It's the bit with the big curved wall, and there's an ogre right nearby. So you can either kind of go inside the curve of the wall or to the outside. We're going to go to the outside of the wall. And the first thing you'll notice around the outside of the wall is that by a burning torch, there is an Amana shrine maiden with her back to you, which is awesome.
Makes for an easy kill.
Yeah, get the drop on her quite easy. Her friend shoots at you, of course. But the issue, of course, is the ogre lying in ambush nearby.
Yeah, so he's quite a big one, and this is the first time we're actually going to see one since Things Betwixt. But he's enormous. He's at least twice as big as the ones that you see there, which makes him quite ominous, but same deal. I mean, if you can kind of get him to flop onto his back and that kind of stuff,
Exactly.
get a few hits, yeah.
Do you know, it's funny, I never noticed that there was a size difference.
Oh yeah, he's much bigger.
It's funny, it is, I didn't think of this either, but it is the first one you see for ages. And there's a couple in this area. Another way to deal with him might be to go to the inside of the curve of the wall, and that way he's kind of stuck behind some pillars and you can range him as long as you don't fall into the abyss. There's a fire seed in there, and before you leave, make sure that you have a look at the inside of the curve of the wall. There's these weird vertical arrangements that are made of stone, but they look for all the world like some kind of mechanism. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a big, tall, grey thing.
For a
that
long
looks like,
time I was sure it must
Yeah.
have some more significance than it does, but
like I genuinely thought I was going to pick up like a cog or something and put it in there and something was going to turn,
Yeah.
but it's apparently nothing. Where we got the drop on that inattentive shrine maiden, there's a path off to the left there where she's got her back to you. There's a doorway that cannot be opened by anyone who is undead and anyone that hasn't faced off with Vendrick. So we'll come back to
we will
that.
be coming back to this. But
Yeah.
some cool items in there, so
Yeah.
hang out for that.
And some interesting lore stuff, which we're going to talk about. We're going to spoil it a little bit later in this episode.
Yes, so anyway, if you follow that curved wall all the way to its edge, you can kind of follow some stone pillars that stick up out of the ground, and it's a pathway, a thin pathway off to the right. You got to deal with a couple of enemies, but once you get to the end, there's sort of like a out-of-the-way chest with a Estus Flask shard in front of it, and the Miracle Sunlight Blade inside of it.
Yeah, which is a buff for a weapon. Lightning damage increase for roughly 90 seconds. Best for lightning-infused weapons, obviously. Needs 36 faith. And interestingly, this is, I think, very clearly a kind of Lindeltian thing. Yeah? Like, the Lindelt people were clerics with miracles. And this, along with a couple of other things, is a very Lindelty item that's down here in this Shrine of Amana / Undead Crypt area.
Definitely seems the theme for the area. Anyway, so once you've picked that up, turn back around and head back out into the main area around where you killed that big ogre, and you'll notice a hut which you can enter. And if you're human, you'll notice at this point that you'll have a summon sign for the NPC Felicia the Brave.
Or as I like to call her, Felicia the Knave. She's a fucking idiot. She's the dumbest. She's the dumbest NPC. She's a really unique class, a lance tank. She has a lance and she's got heavy armor and heaps of health. But she wastes all her health by just sprinting at every enemy she finds, and she gets mobbed. She gets busy dealing with a lizard man, and all the shrine maidens are shooting her from a distance, and she's just dead before she's finished with the lizard man. And then all the people that were interested in her are kind of like, oh, there's someone else over there too. It's really frustrating. But
Yeah, she didn't quite feel like the right kind of an
No.
NPC for the area, but, you know, she gets the job done.
yeah. She's got the Haid Great Lance, which is a really kind of cool lance, and the Knight set of armor. She's, doing well as far as defense goes, but like I say, she wastes it all. So, immediately out of the hut that you're in, she can help you with a Lindelt Cleric, who's right there by the door.
Yeah, I find it's usually easiest if you sort of pull him into the hut and deal with him inside.
Absolutely. And later on, actually, I have been known to pull some guys from ages away all the way back to that hut and do the same thing with them.
Whatever works, man.
There's a bunch of those bloody shrine maidens here as well shooting at you, and some more of those lizard men. The interesting thing here is that I didn't know about this, right, until I was researching this area recently, but there's a pyromancy that I never picked up in this area. So once you've cleared the area immediately outside the hut, if you turn to your right, the flat area that you can stand on extends really, really far. It kind of narrows down to a point, and at the point, past some cursed urns, is a submerged chest containing the pyromancy Fire Tempest, which is an upgraded version of Firestorm. So it does those, vertical pillars of flame thing.
Yeah, still not chaos, though, so it doesn't have the lava that comes out of the ground.
Yes.
So that's a distinction made in the first game. Like, the difference between chaos and normal pyromancies is almost like the distinction between, like, hexes and normal sorceries in this game, in so much as anything with the prefix chaos would always have some form of lava that hung around on the ground for a little bit, whereas all the normal pyromancies didn't.
Why did I never notice that?
Yep.
Like, it's right, you're right, but I just never picked up on that.
Yeah, so chaos dealt with lava, pyro just dealt with normal flame.
Wow, chaos is way cooler.
Yep. So,
now we can head back to the main path and continue along. The wall to the left of the path here contains a cave blocked off by more tree roots, and there's another ogre inside. The ogre is guarding a chest.
and the chest contains the singer's dress. Now, this is described as dress worn by a far-gone muse, offers almost no physical defense, but is blessed with high resistance to magic. These enchanting singers were given song by the great dead one, and have little concept of self. They live only to singe.
To sing. It's fucking Fextra Life. I
Copy and
copy-pasted
paste.
it from Fextra Life, where they don't bother to... I mean, I suppose that would pass a spell checker, but it wouldn't pass, a literate person reading it.
They live only to sing, and will continue singing until they can no longer do so.
But why is the H capital in they? Capital T, capital H-E-Y. Why is it like this? I mean, if the person that writes Fextra Life is actually like Sri Lankan and speaks no words of English and is doing an amazing job, well, then I'm incredibly sorry. But if English is the first language, come on.
So, as mentioned, it has a pretty poor physical defense, but it could come in handy for the area if you want to cop a couple of those spells to the face and deal with the magic.
I mean, the magic defense isn't spectacular, I don't think, but it's decent. I think it's like 45 base defense to magic. Mm-hmm. You'll also pick up a life ring plus 2, which is obviously the upgraded version of the life ring, plus 12.5% HP.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that seems like a lot of HP, really, if you think about it, doesn't it?
Oh, at the higher levels, it probably counts.
I just never use it.
Nah, why would you? Better rings, bro.
The grin you gave me after you said that. Better rings, bro.
So, head back to the main path and continue towards the fog gate.
Yeah, between here there's a lot of resistance. There's a small army of Amana Shrine Maidens and Lizard Men and Lindelt Clerics.
Yeah, now this is the one area that just gives me, like...
It's freaking hard, man.
This is, for me,
Yeah.
Anor Londo Archers 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. It is freaking... Because the thing is that those clerics at the end are in cahoots with a bloody non-hostile Shrine Maiden who heals them. And I'm
As
a ranged
well as,
player.
just constant barrages of tracking spell missiles from the enemies nearby.
It's a perfect storm of bullshit, right? Because if you're a range... Because either you're a melee player, right? And you're going to rush in to fight those Shrine Maidens who are casting at you, right? But that aggroes the bloody clerics.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're so close. Well, that's shit. So, if you don't do that, then you're a ranged player. So you get close enough, and this is what I do. You get close enough to the bloody Shrine Maiden to range her, and you dodge her spells so artfully, the artful dodger, Oliver Twist, right? And then you kill that. You kill that first one, and the second one's like, please, sir, can I have some more? So you kill the second one. So you kill the second one, and then you try ranging the clerics, but they're getting healed. So that's no good for a ranged player. That's for a close-up melee player. So it's like you lose either way.
Yeah. So, you think the most logical thing would be to hang back and, obviously take them out by range, as you said. But what always ends up happening is as you're attacking one of the mages, they always seem to stagger their magic bolt. So you'll be dodging the first bolt, and in the time that you're casting your spell, you're getting hit by the other bolt.
Exactly. Oh, it's so
you can never just dodge them both at the same time.
A good way to do it, I found, is I went to Gavlan and I spent like 10,000 souls on poison arrows. And now, like a wuss, I just hang back like a little coward, not even using any intelligence. Any knave can shoot a bow. And I just poison arrow those fucking clerics and those bloody shrine maidens. I just poison them.
Yep,
that's the way to do it. In fact, I actually reckon that's the secret to this game. Spend all your souls, not on leveling, just on poison arrows. Just poison arrow everyone.
It works, man. Most people are weak to it.
Yep. Don't know about PvP, but the rest of the time, pretty good. So,
so once you do overcome this freaking perfect
storm of bullshit,
yep,
the area will be clear, and to your left you'll see an item glowing atop a ramp. There's like this really creepy, it's like disturbingly neat, this little arranged pile of bones, like a skull resting on top of a little, I don't know, it's this creepy little ornamental skeleton.
But makes sense, because what you pick up is the alluring skull.
Well, I think it's 3 alluring skulls, actually. There's only 1 skull there. How does that work? But it's like, it's up high on the side. Is it like some kind of weird ritual? Like, it almost looks like an altar or something. I'm not sure. It's the only time I've seen something like that.
Was it alluring?
I did see...
There you fucking go.
Wow, I saw it from a distance and I thought, I gotta have it. Oh my god, I fell for it. It's unbelievable.
I think it was an Easter egg, man. It was just the developers messing with you. There's some little nerdy developer sitting behind his desk at work right now, just pushing his glasses back up the ridge of his nose thinking, yeah, I left my mark on this game.
Showed you fools. So that whole arrangement is on the left-hand side of the fog gate. On the right-hand side of the fog gate, so the same side of the fog gate, but the other side of the fog gate, hey? See how that works?
No!
There is a couple of items on a tiny little ledge. You've got to kind of creep around the stone face and not fall into the abyss, but there's a soul of a hero and a divine blessing. And once you've got them, you can traverse the fog, and now you are on the other side of the fog gate.
Yes, that's true. So once you get through here, you're going to be in this weird room full of the acid surge beetles.
Yeah, acid horn beetles, I think they're called. It's important that we get the name of the enemies right.
Thanks, Church.
I'm poking fun at him because I screwed up the names of almost all of the enemies in the notes this time because I trusted Fextra Life. Anyway, the acid horn beetles are numerous here, and there's also a giant acid horn beetle, which is possibly
significant to Aldia.
Aldia's Keep. It's a reference to what happens in Aldia. The various cages around Aldia's Keep house his experiments, and one of them is a giant acid horn beetle. So.
Yeah, and generally anytime you see a large creature variety, you sort of wonder, could it be related to Aldia?
Who dat?
But most importantly, IGGY, there is the bonfire for Roy's resting place, and the reason this is most important is because you've just cleared the most bullshit area of the game.
Yep.
You want that respite.
Never have to do it again unless you happen to be writing notes for the area, so you've got to walk through it to make sure you don't miss anything, and you die half a dozen fucking times even though you're well over leveled.
Cry about it.
Gets to me. Anyway, why is it called Roy's resting place? I mean, Roy the Explorer, and it's spelled that same way, R-H-O-Y. Roy the Explorer invades offline players in the Grave of Saints. And in fact, if you look up the Japanese name for Roy's resting place bonfire, it contains the term Saigo no Chi, which apparently carries a connotation that suggests this is also where Roy the Explorer died. It's not just about resting place, it's also about the place of death, apparently.
Well, I mean,
I don't speak any Japanese. But
I think resting place could be a euphemism for death, no?
I suppose.
Like final resting place?
But I think it also means where you're buried. Like the final resting place could be where you're buried, it also means where you die.
So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. So yeah, I'm guessing it was just the bonfire that was named after the furthest point that Roy was able to get.
I just wanted some recognition for the fact that I looked up the Japanese translation, right?
All right, everyone pat Church on the back.
There you go, thank you.
Now, once we pass the particularly large beetle, we're going to head into another pain in the ass area filled with more casting bastards.
Yeah. All the chasmous areas of this game, I think, are characterized by their difficulty. It seems the more chasmous an area is, the more difficult it is.
I hate you.
If I find out chasmous is a word, I'm going to feel so embarrassed.
Right, listen here, okay? Nobody had to go at friggin' Shakespeare for inventing words, and look at him, he's fucking celebrated. Just leave me alone.
That's right, you're going to be famous one day for chasmous. Just like you're famous for Zeus, god of Thor. It's on a shirt.
It's not yet.
It will be. And I'm going to wear it.
You know the worst part? So am I.
Yep. And people say, what does that mean? I'm going to say, well, let me introduce you to my friend Taboo. Anyway.
Have you met Taboo?
So, going into that chasmous area, it's kind of like a...
Fuck you. Fuck you.
It's kind of like a large arena. It's bounded on all sides by columns. And in the middle, there's a whole bunch of items you can see to pick up. There's a whole bunch of those dancing little ones, which means there's a lot of lizard men around. And also there's some Amana shrine maidens who are going to shoot at you.
But more importantly, when you approach the area, you'll trigger the spawning of peculiar Kindalure.
Yeah, so the guidebook says that he's a strange man of unknown origins, and it accurately predicts that he will attack with a diverse arsenal of dangerous spells. He is like the miracle, hex, and sorcery, mostly hexes and sorceries, I think, genius grandmaster of the world. Like, his spells are fucking powerful, and the casting time is tiny, and he rolls around and evades mine. He's killer. Kicked his ass, but
Eventually, yeah.
he's tough, though.
Yeah, I didn't have that hard a time with him. I sort of, hung back inside the chasm like a mouse. And,
Mouse.
and yeah, just slowly peeked over the edge and got him bit by bit.
What'd you kill him with? Bow?
No, bow, I think, yeah.
That's lame. Any idiot can shoot a bow. He's really cool. I wish that I had the same spells as him, and I wish that I had as many spells as him, and I wish my casting time was as low as his. Because he is awesome.
He can drop some items. Very rarely, he drops the Cleric's Palmer. Less rarely, but still very rare, he drops the Black Witch Staff. And sometimes he'll also drop Lydia's Black Robe.
Lydia.
Lydia.
Yeah.
She's a lady.
I'm a Lydia. So
the Cleric's Palmer actually has the ability to deflect spells by parrying, but it does say that unfortunately it's got quite little physical defense and is little more than a lucky charm. So, again, it's just one of those items that's in the game that, why?
I mean, I like the fact that it's different, but it would be nice if it was different and functional.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I find myself not ever using on any character anything other than the friggin' little leather shield.
Yeah, the pancake shield.
And it's like, I don't want to, but it's the best defense for weight. Yep. Why would I use anything else?
I mean, I've only just recently in New Game Plus changed shields to some other thing that I forget what it is. But I know exactly what you mean. Like, I pick shields for their ability to protect me in a physical fight.
Yeah. And sure, I would probably go to a much heavier shield, but I've only ever played light armor characters, so, and it just bugs me. I'm so bored of that shield, but, I've carried it through, 5 characters now.
I get that myself. It's like I get bored of something, but I'm not willing to make the non-sensible decision of changing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, about that rant.
Black Witch's Staff. A staff used by lady witches, imbued with a special magic, making it a catalyst for sorceries, miracles, and hexes.
Ooh, that's nice.
That's the catalyst that I use, because I like to keep all 3 plus some pyros in my great many attunement slots. Mm-hmm. And I think it's killer. Its casting speed, I think, is a bit lower than most, but... Well,
I was going to say, surely the ability to do all 3 has to come at some sort of
I think
trade-off.
So, those pickups we talked about before, once the arena is clear, you can start grabbing them.
Yeah, so these are just the items that are sitting around in the area. Mm-hmm. One of which being the Red Iron Twin Blade, which always nice to get a Twin Blade because they're a new item. There's not too many in the game.
Yeah, they're quite rare. Apparently, I was reading some stuff about this, and I've never really used Twin Blades, but apparently this is one of the better Twin Blades, and people really love it, along with the Stone Twin Blade.
Yep, so other than that, you can pick up Petrified Dragon Bone, always good for leveling up boss weapons, and a few souls and all the rest. Now, you also, at the far end, which is reachable by going around a tiny ledge, be able to pick up the spell Homing Crystal Soul Mass.
Yeah. Why does it say pyromancy? Well, Betty claims she types what I say, but how true that is...
Nah, I'm blaming you.
All right. I might have said pyromancy. It was probably freaking 4 a.m. In this arena, you also notice that the tree roots that make up the roof kind of extend down almost to the water, which looks really cool. So loot a corpse that's by the door by which you entered this area, and then you can head between some rows of pillars, killing a couple of enemies along the way. There's a corpse at the end near some crumbled ruins that are more crumbled than your run-of-the-mill Shrine of Amana, stock standard, entry-level crumbled ruins. In the sense that it's like, actually...
I'm so glad you said it, because when I read that on the notes, I'm like, what the fuck is he on about?
Well, that's actually how I wrote it. But well, this is like the actual building has fallen in on itself. It's not just rubble, and it's not just a pillar that's kind of decayed. It's like it's just a big collapsed thing. And there's a corpse there with some stuff on it. A lot of green blossoms in this area. So anyway,
enter the hut, and you'll find another milk finito.
Yeah,
now,
she looks different to the others.
She does, and she acts different to the others.
Yeah. So she's first you notice that she's a bit of a wreck.
Yeah, she actually looks to be partly hollow, to be honest.
Yeah, like she's got signs definitely of being undead, and it obviously works by degrees, the curse, because we saw Luca Teal. She was going hollow bit by bit, like her face was a bit messed up under that mask, I think. So maybe that's what's going on. Her hands particularly look a bit hollow. Her dress is all tattered and wrecked, and she's got this big ragged wound in her chest. She's sitting there like clutching her knees defensively. So what's her deal?
Bit of a sorry scene. I don't know, because once you talk to her, she vanishes.
Yeah, she just shines like a light and she disappears. But what I think is that I think the guidebook actually says that she survived an encounter with the Demon of Song.
Oh, possibly.
Yeah.
I was wondering, because you said something then, that when you finish talking to her and she disappears, she sort of floats away. In
Yeah,
a
there's
ball
this
of light.
bright light, yeah.
I'm wondering if she's like a manifestation of little ones or something. No?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're all made of the same stuff.
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
pulling shit out my ass at the moment.
Well, I always wondered about that, because some people say that the Milfinito have the power to teleport, and that's what they're doing. Because there's another one later on we'll talk about that teleports away as well. And I don't know if they actually can teleport, or if it's some kind of, by talking to them, you cause them to cease to exist if they're in a weakened state. I don't know.
It's interesting.
It's
I mean, why would one be locked in a cage if they can teleport?
Exactly. It's a very good point. Right by that Milfinito, down some stairs, is the fog gate for the boss fight.
That is correct.
Yeah, here we get to see what I think is one of the most imaginative bosses, but also one of the most disappointingly easy.
Yeah, so the Demon of Song. Big, giant, frog-looking thing. I mean, all
Yeah.
I can really say is he's not Jewish.
This is a foreskin thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a
Oh, yes.
foreskin thing.
It's kind of his defense mechanism. He kind of pulls his little hooded soldier over his face, and when he does, you can't attack him.
I got to say, when I'm scared, I pull my foreskin over my face as well. What the fuck are we talking about? That is his defense mechanism. His hide is impervious to damage, so he has these creepy corpse hands that stick out either side of his really weird humanoid face on top of his strange frog's body, and he'll pull his weird black rubbery flesh down over his face. I don't know if your foreskin is black and rubbery and thick like that and
Necrotic.
split along the middle so that it opens like an eye. Like, you've got to see a doctor or a urologist or witch doctor or something, anything. Good God. Anyway, when the demon developed a taste for human flesh, it was contained within the Shrine of Amana, but the line of priestesses who looked after the shrine and appeased the creature have died off. That's the guidebook description. This fight occurs in an arena full of shallow water, but there's no pitfalls.
Yep, so you can move freely, and this guy has the ability to scale the entire arena in a jump.
Yep.
The only real threat with this guy is sort of keeping the range. Like, there's a range where if you're too far, he can completely catch you off guard, and if you're too close, he can get you with his swipes and all the rest. If he does happen to get you with one of his launch across the room kind of attacks, if you don't have full health, he can one-hit you. Now, other than that, not terribly challenging. Very fun, very interesting, very unique, but not particularly terrifying. I did have a little bit of trouble with him, but as long as you're not wasting your spells and your attacks while his little hooded soldier is closed, then you're fine.
I was about to say mine's not a soldier, mine's a general, but then most generals are like old and wrinkly. And...
So, fits.
So, the Amana priestesses who once looked after him, I notice, are now openly hostile to any visitors. So I actually think that their purpose has changed. I think they once wanted to look after him, but now they've been tasked, potentially by Vendrick,
To keep you away from
to
him.
keep everyone out.
Yep.
So, let's talk about the drops from the boss. The boss, I think, I'm a ranged character, but once I killed him, which was very quickly, the two drops are the Demon of Song Soul.
And the key to the embedded. Now, the Demon of Song Soul, you can do a straight trade for the Spotted Whip. Now, the Spotted Whip is poisonous.
When you upgrade the whip and poison infuse it, it's apparently one of the best poison weapons in the game. So it's a shame that whips suck.
They don't suck. They're very good. They just have really poor durability.
They're just useless.
Why? The range on them's awesome.
Anybody wearing any kind of armor, the whip just bounces right off, in my mind.
Well, not in the game.
Really?
Oh, no. PvP, they're excellent.
Yeah, I've never
It's
been successfully PvP'd with a whip.
Really?
Yeah.
They're very easy to just eke away at your health because it's, just range. All you got to
It
do
is
is wait
good-
for them to make a mistake.
Good range. Wow.
You can just keep your distance, never get hit. They're going to keep trying to swing at you. You just keep moving back and... That's why it's called a whip, because it makes that noise.
That's ridiculous. Whips are supposed to crack, man. Haven't you seen Indiana Jones?
Tell me about the key to the embedded.
The key to the embedded is really, really interesting and really, really creepy. It's a great sword. The 1.06 update contained a buff for this sword, which makes it a favoured weapon for some, because it's got the great sword moveset, decent damage, and it's really low weight. It weighs 4. Like my mace that I got early on in the game that I used from level like 16 or whatever weighs more than that.
Yep, so great sword only weighing 4. Now, it says that the sword that opens the embedded door, shaped like a weapon but is in fact a key, plunge the key into the embedded to bring a rhapsodic end to his fate. So nothing that we didn't already really know.
Yes, it then says, the once human embedded, realizing that he could never resist the temptation of the flesh, bound himself eternally with chains. Since then, he has awaited the day that somebody will find this key and bury it within his bosom. So it's not eternal, is it?
I guess not.
And rhapsodic, just for the record, means overly emotional or extremely joyous. Supposedly, this dude bound himself to the door. This is the guy that you remember we saw in the last episode in Dranglake Castle, who was imprisoning that poor Milfinito and was tied to the door in a creepy upside-down Silent Hill fashion. Supposedly, according to the description, he bound himself eternally, but it's hard to imagine that he tied himself upside down to a door with his arms and legs tied as well.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. I suppose you're right. I mean, there's no way he could have actually achieved that by himself.
Yeah, and even if he did, what we do is, I mean, you don't have to, but the key disappears if you go into New Game Plus, so it's worth using it, I suppose, while you've got it, is go back to Dranglake Castle and stab the embedded with the sword, which makes the sword disappear, kills the embedded, and frees the chap Milfinito, which is the world's most complicated suicide. Like, if you're that bound up about it, just kill yourself. What is this shit? But of course, being undead, he can't just kill himself, because he'll come back.
Right.
Yeah, so it seems like the embedded kidnapped that woman, and then for some reason thought that even though he felt bad about all his carnal desires, he'd still keep her imprisoned eternally in a cage that he's locked the door to. He has to put up with him going,
Yeah, with his
shaking
butt
around.
to her. You
Yeah.
can't even watch her.
Upon freeing the Milfinito, when you try to talk to her, she disappears just like the last one, and she leaves behind the Ring of the Dead. The wearer of this ring appears human even when hollow. The item description says, they say that in the undead crypt we can reacquaint ourselves with the dead. We all suffer loss, and none of us can escape death. Then what is the fascination with reclaiming that which has already passed into that beyond? So this is a ring that allows an undead to appear human.
Which can come in handy in a couple of areas.
Absolutely. So, there are a few theories about why all of this is in Dranglake Castle.
Hit me.
Okay, so of all the theories out there, I think only 3 warrant mentioning. The first, and they're all kind of incomplete, but the first is that he was associated with Vendrick somehow. That he was one of Vendrick's servants, but was harmful to Vendrick's plans because he was so interested in interfering with the Milfinito.
So yeah, Vendrick obviously then bound him there in anger, which could explain away how he got bound there despite claiming that he did it himself.
Yes.
Or despite the key claiming he did it himself.
And the reason that we say that he's harmful to Vendrick's plans is because Vendrick did have plans for the Shrine of Amana, and that by stealing the Milfinito, he has upset those plans somehow. The next theory is that Nashandra sent him to snoop on Vendrick's plans. But upon returning to the castle with the Milfinito to examine, he was overcome with lust, and his shame or concern for the girl made him bind himself to the door. The last theory, which I think is the best one, because it's coolest and it's perhaps the most logical, is that she was a part of Vendrick's experiments. We know that Aldia and Vendrick were experimenters. You know, it was Vendrick's experiments that made the golems, and it was Aldia's experiments that made all those creepy creatures, and we think probably turned him into the ancient dragon.
Yes.
So, Vendrick had an interest in ending the curse. We know he was gazing at the essence of the soul, and we know that he wanted to beat, in a way, death. So here we find a creature who is linked to the undead crypt, where death is the prime concern, and the dead are given peace, which is linked to Nito also, the great dead one who gave us the first death, who has an effect on specifically dead people, and who is wearing a ring which bridges the gap between life and death or undeath. Mm-hmm. So it seems like if your goal is to beat the curse or beat death, those are all things that you'd want to start experimenting with. So maybe she was up there locked in a cage because Vendrick wanted to experiment on her. That, I think, is the coolest of all the theories, that she's actually a leftover from Vendrick's experiments.
Right, but it doesn't tie in the embedded.
Yes, well, the embedded just wanted to come and grope her, so then...
Okay, so I guess that fits the official story given by the key, and your story fully fleshes out as to why the Milfinito is just quietly sitting in a cage.
Yeah, but of course it is entirely possible that he just made off with her.
And the cage is quite Aldian.
That's Aldia's way, isn't it, to lock things in a cage? Yeah, so after the boss, we've talked about how we're going to go and free the Milfinito and slay the embedded, but for now... we exit the arena through a cave, which leads slightly upwards and comes out in another part of the flooded clearing. So this is the last, I think, of all the Casimus areas that we'll be in.
God damn it, it just sounds so natural. I barely even notice when you do it, you bastard. So, either way, yes, that's correct. We're going to cross the chasm, and you're going to find another sort of round tower room, which you'll go up some stairs to enter, and you'll come across the Rise of the Dead bonfire.
Yeah.
Oh, but before you go into that tower, there is 20 magic arrows in a chest just outside the door to the right. Now, enter into the tower, and there's a spiral staircase leading up. And once you go up, you're going to enter into a interesting room.
Yeah. The room at the top contains a door, which only opens for hollows. Conveniently, there's a suicide point nearby, which you can jump off to die. And, you know, I jumped off it, and I still had this tiny sliver of health. And it's like, far out. I had to psych myself up to jump off the tower, and I lived. So, only a hollow can open that door.
You've been taking suicide tips from the embedded.
The other side of the door contains a really familiar enemy, an undead supplicant. And we've seen undead supplicants before when we fought the Prowling Magus in Brightstone Cove, Tseldora.
Yeah. They were the weird creeping, crawling guys on the floor that looked like their legs wouldn't quite work.
That's right. And also, just past them is an Aldia Warlock, also called a Prowling Magus.
There you go.
Which is the same character model as the Prowling Magus.
Very cool.
Well, I mean, the issue is, he's called an Aldia Warlock. This is an area that was set up and controlled by Vendrick, so it kind of makes sense that Aldia would be committing forces to these things.
Now, these guys have a chance to drop the Warlock mask, which is a pretty unique item.
Yeah, dark defense, and it increases the number of souls acquired by 2.5%, and it bumps your intelligence up by 2 points.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice all-rounder.
You know, I've got it, and I didn't know it did that. Normally I look up every item I pick up, but I'm just lazy, so it's a rare drop, so I need to start wearing it. It looks kind of cool too, all these horns sticking out the sides and stuff. Now, after killing the Aldia Warlock, you enter a really weird shrine known as the Shrine of the Living. It's better kept than the rest of the area, you notice. All the walls aren't crumbling, and there's a really nice, clean area with some lit candles. And in the middle, there is a big burning fire set beneath some really creepy statues of two really skinny figures. Each one has 4 stunted arms, and one of them has a kind of torn open chest, and they're both writhing in agony. It's macabre, man.
Yeah, man. Looks like something that would come off the album cover for Soul Mass. So, what can you tell me about the Shrine of the Living?
Well, there's a Milfanito praying there at the altar.
Yeah.
If you speak to her, she repeats the Milfanito story. I've been here forever. I sing to make people go to sleep. I really promise you, I've got no idea about the outside world. And that's not going anywhere. Like, I've got nothing to say about that. It's just weird that they're always like, so I really don't know anything about the outside world. Fine, I get it. So she thanks you actually for killing the demon of song, and she says you stopped that cursed singing. It sounded just like you're singing actually, but I didn't say that. During the conversation, she gives you a smooth and silky stone and another divine blessing. The interesting thing about the altar is that there was nothing like this in the previous game, right? If you have no effigies at all, so none in your item box, none in your inventory, none, if you pray at the altar, you become a human again.
So it's kind of a way of always being able to become human no matter what. It's just, yeah, because a lot of people complained in Dark Souls 1, especially prior to the DLC, that there was a eventual hard limit on the amount of human effigies you can get without some serious long-term farming. Then in the DLC, there was the humanity sprite enemy in one of the areas, which you could farm, and they drop humanity much more often, and people stopped complaining about it.
Absolutely. So this is a unique addition to a Souls game. And also it seems like a kind of fail-safe, given that in this area there is a door that can only be opened by a human. So it's both a creation of FromSoft to ensure that people have access to that area, and also, I think, a creation of Vendrick to ensure that if everything worked out okay, and there was a human that could get past all of that stuff, wasn't aided by Nashandra, because Nashandra is dead and dark and would get put to sleep, then they could get up here, and if they hollow along the way, they can come up here, become a human again, go and access that throne room. That little secret room that he put there. So, interesting about all of that.
Now, from here, head down a spiral staircase to another ground floor. Now, heading through a collapsed wall into a small cave, you'll see a corpse with a fire seed. After you pick that up, head out into the main exit, and you'll end up along a path with many pillars on either side.
So, there's a couple of chests in this area. To the left of the staircase is a chest containing the Manslayer, a katana with a blade covered in poison that derives from the poison of the countless people it has killed. So it's so soaked in blood that the blood's gone rotten and is now poisonous. Clean that shit. That's eats the Ebola.
It's just fear-mongering. Now, once you've picked that up, you can go to the right of a staircase and you'll be able to pick up a bonfire set in a chest. And now that we've cleared this little offshoot area, we're going to head back to the Rise of the Dead bonfire, and you'll notice a really nice, large, ornate door nearby.
Yep, so that's the exit to the area. Once you're inside, there's an elevator platform which takes you down to the Undead Crypt.
Yeah, so this is the whole area covered.
Yeah.
But we've been hinting at the importance of the Shrine of Amana for a few weeks now. And I actually feel like we've been a bit teasy for, the last 20 episodes about revealing the secrets of the story of this game and the lore. And I finally feel like for the first time we're actually going to really get our hands dirty. And we're going to do that by starting with one simple question. What is the Shrine of Amana?
And that's a very good question, isn't it? What is the Shrine of Amana? I mean, most of the areas are self-explanatory, aren't they? The Lost Bastille was created to house the undead, and the Forest of Fallen Giants is an ancient battlefield. So with a couple of exceptions, we kind of always know where we're standing. And this area, we really don't unless we start asking questions. So the first question that we can ask to answer that question, what is the Shrine of Amana, is what do we know to this stage that might be relevant? Right,
and this is the part that I get a little bit excited because up to this point, I know that we've got a pretty good theory about everything that's going on. There's a number of competing theories out there, but the one that we've settled on seems to be this big, grand, unifying theory. But I'm not quite as au fait with it as you are, so I feel like we're going to pull a lot of strings together and just really tidy this up. And it's good for me because I think you're going to reveal some exciting stuff.
Yeah, and there is an entire community out there hashing these things out. And I would love to say that we've got an entirely unique theory, but actually the theory someone else or other people have come up with is, I think, the most correct. So necessarily that's the one we're sticking with. And we're not going to go through the entirety of it right now, only the bits that are directly relevant to what's going on here. And we really could have covered this next episode, but it's kind of, like you say, it's exciting. I want to get it out. So what we know that's relevant is, I think, that Nashandra is a creature of dark. So that's evidenced from a bunch of things.
Yeah, like how she is very clearly a hologram that disappears when she's in a white form, but also there's those paintings where she seems to be like emerging from darkness.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, the guidebook even says that she formed from a tiny shard of the soul of Manus, father of the abyss, who is the father of darkness, really. So she's clearly a creature that bears dark. Also, later on, we will have a little altercation with Nashandra, and her attacks are dark attacks. Mm-hmm. She's also the queen of Drangleic, obviously, but she no longer wants Vendrick to be alive. She suggests that the bearer of the curse go and get rid of Vendrick, saying we have no need of two leaders. And she also says, you fought admirably on your journey, and it sounds more like an observation than an assumption, like she's been watching what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Now we know that Vendrick is beyond the Shrine of Amana. Necessarily we know that because our path is to Vendrick and we're at the Shrine of Amana, but also later on in the next area we will confirm that for a fact. What we'll also confirm later on is that Vendrick's soul, along with a lot of his prized gear, is located in that secret room that we talked about in this area that we couldn't get to, by where we got the drop on the inattentive Amana Shrine Maiden.
Yeah, the one where you have to be human and have defeated Vendrick to get into.
Yep, that's exactly it. The singing of the Milfinito lulls any things that bear death or dark to sleep. And that, I think, is the most important point.
Yeah, I think this is what's going to start to reveal what we're going to be driving home
You start to see what we're driving at. The door after the final bonfire can only be opened by an undead in this area, and the Milfinito and the Finito, who we encounter in the next area, are almost certainly creations of Nito, the great dead ones. And this area is closely linked with the concept of death, and probably really has been since time immemorial, because I don't believe that Vendrick created this place or the people in it.
Cool.
So, like you say, there's a bunch of theories that tie all that together. So if you've got a theory or a nuance to this theory that you want to tell us about, please tell us. But in the meantime, this is what we think is going on. Mm-hmm. So we know that at some stage in the history of Drangleic, everything had gone to shit, right?
Yeah, so you're talking about the battle with the giants that was clearly being lost and how, the curse was taking hold of all the citizens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. So the situation for Drangleic was bad, and really it was only the appearance of the unknown hero killing the giant lord that turned things around. But even then, after the war, the curse is ravaging the people. The population are half dead from the giants. All the infrastructure is destroyed. So it's a wrecked kingdom. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the problems that exist in Drangleic are the direct result of Nashandra's influence over the king. She convinced him there was a threat across the sea, right?
Yep.
So he set off to destroy the giants. And that resulted in the counterattack that smashed the kingdom. But it also resulted in a great deal of power for them both, because he brought something back with him, and it was powerful. It allowed him to create the golems to achieve his giant state. He's easily more than twice the size of a man. And it also allowed him to gaze at the essence of the soul. It might have even created the spread of the curse, incidentally. It's been suggested that what he brought back was the Ashen Mist Heart, but I actually think, and we talked about this before, that Vendrick was the previous champion, that there were 4 great souls, and he claimed them through combat.
Correct, yeah.
And that's what I think.
He might have been one of the chosen undeads from before.
Yes, except it's fair to assume that there was no undeath in those days.
Right.
Which is what I think makes Vendrick the ultimate badass, that he couldn't come back from the dead, but he still managed to defeat the 4 old ones. So it seems that that's what he got when he was overseas, and that's what the giants came back looking for. That's a bit of speculation, though. Mm-hmm. So most people, I think, seem to accept that it was the Ashen Mist Heart, which we will get later on. Anyway, at some point in that situation, Vendrick has realised, I think, what's going on. He's realised that Nashandra is not what she says she is, that she's a creature of the dark. Mm-hmm. And how he came to that realisation, I'm not sure. But it seems like from the moment that he realised it to the moment that Nashandra realised that he knew, he had a lot of time to get a lot of stuff in order. The Emerald Herald says that Vendrick gazed into the essence of the soul. So clearly he was a clever guy who knew some stuff about the fundamental nature of life. So it's possible that in his examination of the soul, he started to see what I think Salden was hinting to us in Majula, that the curse is tied to the soul, that the curse is inevitable. And in that way, he kind of started to lose hope. The curse may well be tied to the abyss and tied to Nishandra, and maybe he realized that along the way. It's possible also, we know that he had a Milfanito in the castle, that her singing lulled his wife to sleep, and he realized something was going on. So there's a bunch of ways that he could have worked out that Nishandra wasn't
actually
Nishandra.
dark.
Exactly.
So from this point on, I think what you're going to describe is the things that Vendrick did towards the end of his life to put up roadblocks and defend himself from Nishandra and what Nishandra had planned.
Absolutely. So Nishandra's goal clearly wasn't just the power that she had. I mean, I think that she kind of would have wanted the kingdom to be successful because it was hers, but I think she wants more power than that. In fact, in the conversation with the bearer of the curse, you'll remember that she says about Vendrick that he was powerful and that when the curse took hold, he found even more power and that he was a great man and everything, but he never claimed the true throne and he was never a true monarch. So I think she wants something else. And funnily enough, the final area of the game is called the Throne of Want.
Yep.
So it seems like maybe that's the true throne.
Yeah, it's what she was trying to aim for.
Exactly. That's what Nishandra is chasing. So, think about the situation that Vendrick finds himself in. His wife, who has been manipulating him into making all these horrible mistakes and to getting him into this massive mess, is some kind of dark creature with goals that he couldn't really discern at the early stages of his realization. And for a man with a dark problem, the Shrine of Amana presents the perfect solution, right?
Correct.
Because anyone who is imbued with dark falls instantly to sleep. It's a place that they just cannot go if they want to be successful. So, knowing that the Milfanito in the shrine would send anyone who bears dark straight to sleep, the shrine became a barrier between Nishandra and Vendrick. But also I think it became a barrier, because Vendrick was really clever, to Nishandra getting what she wanted. Think about the geography of the area. The Throne of Want is accessed, and we will talk about this in later episodes, but it's accessed from Drangleic Castle, right?
Correct, yep.
So there's no reason really that Nishandra couldn't have just gone into the Throne of Want herself, and really probably she may have gone to the Throne of Want, you know, in and out of there with the inability to seize the final throne at the end. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that upon realizing what she wanted, Vendrick created the king doors, you know, these doors that require the king's ring.
So he locked her out and then came up with the key that she would require to enter.
Exactly. So the door seems to be more than just physical. It seems to be magical, because surely you would think that Nishandra would be able to smash her way inside. But I actually think the door is a magical barrier that can only be opened with the king's ring, which he took with him when he left.
Right, so this is the first barrier that he's put up.
Yes. The second barrier, I think, is that he took himself, his ring, and his most loyal guards to the Undead Crypt. The Undead Crypt is perfect for two reasons. Firstly, it lies beyond the Shrine of Amana. The Shrine of Amana is protected by the magic of the Milfanito, but also by a bunch of Lindelt immigrants and a bunch of Amana shrine maidens who have suddenly found common cause and keep all intruders out. So even if she sends people in there, they have a really tough fight on their hands. The Undead Crypt, as we will learn next episode, is protected by the Grave Wardens. And Grave Warden Agdane says that he has the utmost disdain for anybody who would disturb the sleep of those within. So it seems like if Nishandra comes along to get at Vendrick, to kill him for betraying her, and to get the ring, the Grave Wardens will be there to protect Vendrick. Then there's the fact that Vendrick has a bunch of Cyan Knights and his most powerful and loyal guard, Velstadt, defending him. There's a little chink in the armour of that theory, actually, because you'll notice that Grave Warden Agdane actually joins you to disturb the sleep of Velstad, but I haven't quite worked that out.
Yeah, it's a little bit idiosyncratic with this theory, but other than that, nice and tight.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know why the Grave Warden suddenly does that, but who knows. So, the last defence, I think, is that we can't get through to the Throne of Want without the Giant's kinship. We can't obtain the Giant's kinship without the Ashen Mist Heart. And the Ashen Mist Heart, which some believe Vendrick could use to separate his soul from his body, which is how he ended up finally going hollow, is now held by the ancient dragon in Aldia's Keep.
Who we theorize is his brother.
That's exactly right. I think that the ancient dragon is Aldia. So it seems like Vendrick says, hey, I've got this thing that this horrible woman will need if she wants to achieve her goals. So I need you to hang on to it. I need you to take it to the safest place that you can think of and look after it. And so the ancient dragon keeps it on himself. Strangely enough, gives it voluntarily to the chosen undead, but would figure, perhaps, that to have passed through the undead crypt and had an encounter with Vendrick, the person is either A, worthy, or B, not in cahoots with Nashandra.
Yep.
So, the Ashen Mist Heart itself is protected by an ally, a close ally of Vendrick.
Blood.
Yeah. So those are the three things that you need. You need access to the Throne of Want itself, which Vendrick protected with the door. You need the ring to open the door, which Vendrick protected by keeping it in the same room as him and in the undead crypt, behind several layers of protection. And you need the Ashen Mist Heart, which went to his immensely powerful brother. So it seems pretty clear that Vendrick himself set up all of these things just to screw with the plans of Nashandra.
Now, I just want to dwell on that for one moment. That's pretty big. I mean, that designs the entire rest of the game and the last couple of areas that we've been through. I mean, that's not small, man. Like, that gives impetus for half of the game now.
Yep, and I actually think there's a good argument to make that it gives some impetus for the first half of the game as well, but I'll go into that later. But yeah, that's massive. That's the bit about this whole theory that I was kind of like, hot damn, it really became Vendrick versus Nashandra, like...
Yeah, and it's so easy to miss unless you're, pulling all of these strings and really trying to make something out of it. It seems so clear once it's explained to you, but otherwise it'd just be so easy to think, oh, King Door, just another gamey gimmick that I need a special key which I need to go on a quest to get to enter, without actually thinking about it. But hold up, no, the King Door was made by the king for a reason and locked with this ring for a reason, and the ring is stored in this place for a reason, and
isn't it cool?
It's just everything's just coming together.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no other explanation for it. And I feel kind of sorry for people that play through the game never really getting that. It's like, yeah, it's a fun game. Like, it's interesting and it's pretty and it's good gameplay, and I would enjoy it for what it is. But if you don't have that deeper understanding of exactly what's going on and why, it just seems like you only get half the experience.
Yeah. Just
cool
empty
stuff.
Experience.
So the last thing that Vendrick did, well, the second last thing, was to place his possessions, some of his prized possessions, so his personal armor set and his crown and his soul, which some people theorize he separated from his body using the Ashen Mist Heart, behind that door that we talked about that you need to be a human to get through, which is probably a magical door. It kind of guarantees that Nashandra herself can't open it. So even if she can get past the Milfinito, she can't get through that particular door because she's not a human herself.
Yeah. She will never be.
And also, given the spread of the curse and the collapse of the kingdom, there probably weren't a great many non-undeads around to send in there. It's interesting as well in that room, there's a human-sized throne. In the throne room in Drangleic Castle, where Vendrick would have sat before he made this realization, where he lived happily with Nashandra after seizing enough power to become a giant, right? There's a giant throne, like a really big one, for his size. So Vendrick himself is immense, and so is Nashandra. And yet, later on, after sitting that throne, in the room where he keeps all his stuff, is a human-sized throne, a really little one that even the bearer of the curse could sit on. So it seems strange. It doesn't seem like the chronology makes any sense, that he's a giant in the castle, then he goes to the Shrine of Amana and he's a human-sized man, then he goes to the Undead Crypt and he's a giant again. Like, how does that work? I think, this is my own theorizing, that it's symbolic, right? I think that Vendrick was a giant when he put all that stuff in there. But I think that it was all of the meddling of Nashandra, going overseas and fighting the campaign and winning and coming back to Drangleic with all this power, and then the enemy comes, and this is all the time that Vendrick regrets. This is not something that he's happy about. He feels cheated and manipulated, and ultimately it's led to the destruction of his kingdom. Mm-hmm. So I think when he puts that chair there, I think that he's kind of saying that he wants to be remembered for the king that he was and for the man that he was before all that manipulation, right?
Isn't that nice?
I think that's kind of cool. I think that it's kind of like there's a human Vendrick, right? And it's the human Vendrick that is saying fuck you to Nashandra. It's the human Vendrick that is going to accept a fate worse than death. I'm going to go to the Undead Crypt, and over the course of millennia, I'm going to go insane, right? all to protect the world from Nashandra, and it's the human me, the old me, before all this junk happened, that's doing that for the world. That's, I think, why there's a human-sized throne in there.
That's nice, man.
Isn't that cool? So then it seems that his final act was to go to the Undead Crypt with the last of his army, take his most loyal servant to protect him, and ultimately, we'll mention this next episode, but when we find Vendrick, he's roaming totally insane, mostly naked,
Yeah.
giant and sad and bearing the pressure of the curse all alone, but
Just
really
walking circuits.
just we're walking in circles aimlessly like one of those elephants in a zoo that's too small, you know? But ultimately, it's a victory, I think, over his real enemy. Yeah, and she has no option but to create a different path to power, which I think is why she takes a direct interest in the bearer of the curse, why she's been watching you, and why she gives you that direction to go and fight with Vendrick, though she would have known you were going there anyway. It's because she can manipulate you into going to the crypt and challenging Vendrick and obtaining the ring which opens the door.
Which does raise an interesting question. You've discussed, for a little bit now, all the things that have been done by Vendrick to stop Nashandra achieving her ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, at the end of the game, we still make it to the room with Throne of Want, and she's still there. So how did she get there if she wasn't able to go about it in the ways that we're discussing?
Well, that's actually it's a good question. I suppose the simplest explanation for that is that the door gets opened, and she's some kind of weird, she's not a person, she's a weird demony creature, so she kind of summons up out of the ground when you get there. So maybe it's just the fact that the door is now open, the path is now clear. Having said that, though, you can open the door previously and then leave. You can fight some bosses before the final boss area and leave, and the door's kind of open, and Nashandra still doesn't just go and claim the throne and assume victory and say, well, I tricked that guy into opening the door, didn't I?
Maybe she wanted you to collect all the parts of the puzzle and then defeat you at the end to take everything that you've achieved off your corpse and achieve the goal for herself.
That's certainly the theory that I kind of ascribe to, but there is another theory that I kind of have some respect for, and I'm kind of tossing it up. I've encountered the idea that Nashandra wants to lose, that she wants you to defeat her, and that the ultimate manipulation is more in line with the manipulation that was occurring with Kingseeker Frampt and Darkstalker Karth, where it's actually a question of what the player chooses to do at the end of the game.
So with that one, we theorised that the whole time the primordial serpents were actually manipulating the chosen undead for their own purposes. And you're saying that there's possibility, though we haven't really explored this theory too much, and I don't know how I feel about it knowing what I know now, that Nashandra has been manipulating the bearer of the curse in this game to achieve some ultimate goal in the end. But
Yes.
it just seems a bit odd that she does that through having you kill her.
It's a discussion that we need to have, I think, closer to the end of the game, otherwise we're going to spoil all the lore things now. I actually have to say, I'm not completely comfortable with any of the answers that exist right now to that question, but suffice it to say that some people believe, and I'm not sure that I'm one of them, that Nashandra's ultimate goal was to lose and have you sit the throne.
Right, and there's some theory that goes with that, and yeah, as you said, we've not fully examined it.
Yeah, no matter how much I read, it always feels like there's a big gap in the theory.
Fair enough.
So anyway, there's obviously more to be said about the entire story, but I think we spent enough time branching off to this, well, really the very end of the game, but also into the very next area. So let's leave it there for now. We're basically done with the episode, but
we've given strong reason for at least what Nashandra and Vendrick have been doing for the last, so many years of their existence.
Absolutely. And it's important to note as well, we don't know how long ago all of that was.
Yep.
How long Vendrick has been
Waiting.
How long ago Nashandra and Vendrick had their falling out. These things could have happened hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago. But the point is that everything's coming to a head now that the bearer of the curse is going about wrecking everyone's party. So,
Nice way of thinking about it.
we asked last episode for what questions you'd like us to ask the community.
Yeah, obviously keep sending them in if you've got any.
That's lazy, isn't it? It's like, what's the question? Someone else can decide.
Yeah, but we got some fresh ideas and simple logical stuff. I think this one that we're going to ask this week is, it's the kind of one where I read it, I'm like, well, obviously, that's a good question. It's so simple and so clear. Why didn't we ask this sooner? So, yeah, it's good. We can't think of everything.
Yeah, and I find as well that because I get so emotional about this game when it makes me angry, I get validated when I look online and someone else says, yeah, that place fucking aggravates me. Like, yep, all right, cool. It's not just me. I'm not just a moron. So along those lines, the question is, it's from Austin Dickey 3, at Austin Dickey 3 on Twitter. So go and follow at Austin Dickey 3 and see if his real name is actually as hilarious as his online handle.
What's the question, Church?
What's your most hated enemy? What's your most hated enemy?
It's very simple, isn't it? It's a good question.
It is a good question.
Again, I'm not going to give my answer now. I need to think about it.
But you've been thinking about it since you wrote it on the notes.
You could probably write a rap sheet of all the enemies you hate in the game.
Yeah, I've got no flow, though. God, that was just terrible. My flow's as bad as my jokes. I'm like a pregnant woman.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Church.
Oh, God.
If you don't get that one, good. Just embrace your innocence and hold on to it for as long as you can.
All right, well, I think we're done.
Yeah, you can tell it's the wrap-up part of the episode because it's all falling apart.
Yeah, well, it generally does towards the end, doesn't it? We generally... Because what's looming is that we have to wrap up. That's the thing.
And we just sort of try and put that off for as long as possible, but we don't have any more content. We're done with the notes. It's like, we're bad at wrapping up, so let's not do that. Let's just keep talking, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
Fucking mess.
We just need to kill it.
Yep, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Keep chugging that Estus.
Keep chugging that Estus. Can't believe I said that.
The Dark Souls 2 has been a Screaming in Digital production. You can contact us on info@thedarksouls2.com, join the community at facebook.com/thedarksouls2, tweet @thedarksouls2, or leave a comment on the show notes. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or spread the word. Our theme tune is The Knights of Darkness by Zero Project.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk, tell you how to suck eggs. The first time I heard that saying, teach you how to suck eggs, I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever heard. Is there a technique to sucking eggs?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, you put a pinhole in the top, pinhole in the bottom, and...
I thought you're supposed to blow.
Well, that's if you want to empty the egg, but why would you want to empty the egg?
Why would you want to suck a raw egg out of its shell?
My granddad used to do it. Protein, bro.
But why not just crack it and eat it with a spoon? Or drink it in a cup?
Well, because shells and shit. Whereas this way, it's like fresh straight out the chook's bum. Walk up to it, grab a pin, poke, walk away.
And then how quickly does it come out?
Slurp it.
All at once?
Just suck it out.
I'm totally baffled by that. I just feel like it would take a little while to come out and you're getting this like injection of gross gooey.
Yeah,
like,
you are.
Oh, why don't you just fucking do a shot of egg?
Pretty much are.
Why don't you just cook it?
Look,
mate?
I don't need to teach you how to suck eggs.
Okay, that was I found that funnier than most will, so let's move on.